My name is Marie Yambo and I'll be bringing you up to speed with Matters News, where Mediheal Hospital refutes claim it is involved in illegal kidney transplant and 3 people go blind after consuming illicit brew in Moya, Kirinyaga County. And we bring you details of the president's state visit to China in just a short moment. Let's begin with the Mediheal story, where the management at Mediheal Hospital, through its legal team, says it's prepared for any investigation regarding its kidney transplant services, assuring full cooperation with the authorities. Speaking in Nairobi, Mediheal Hospital's lawyer, Conrad Maloba, maintains that all procedures done at the facility have adhered to the regulatory standards and the institution is ready to be accountable for its actions.
Mediheal Hospital, associated with former Kisses MP Swarup Mishra, is now defending itself from allegations of involving in body organ harvesting, saying its kidney transplant program is above board and backed by requisite regulations as stipulated in Kenyan laws. The lawyers representing the hospital, whose headquarters is in Eldoret, terms the allegations of organ harvesting as unfounded and meant to tarnish the good name of the facility.
This is a scientific audit. The government and the team that will be set up, they know what they're looking for. We're not hiding anything. Yeah, the audit, that's what the audit is being undertaken for.
The lawyer saying the hospital has nothing to hide and is ready to cooperate with all relevant arms of the government for a thorough audit for Kenyans to know the truth.
But what the government has done is that they have said suspend kidney transplant pending a scientific audit. And my request to you right now is let's all wait for this audit.
These sentiments come as National Assembly Health Department Committee promised an inquiry into the matter. Through its chairperson, Dr. James Nyikal, the committee is set to take 8 days to investigate and assess legal and ethical integrity and transplant processes at the facility and evaluate the regulatory mechanisms and whether they were adhered.
What this committee has just done now is actually set up an inquiry, a committee inquiry on what exactly has gone on.
Nandi Health Member of Parliament Bernard Kitur wants the committee to disclose the full scope and current status of investigations into the facility's alleged involvement in illegal kidney transplants.
A report on the identity and activities of both local and international criminal syndicates involved in illegal organ harvesting, including strategic initiatives undertaken to dismantle these networks.
Thank you, Doreen Arange, for that report. Now, the body of the late Pope Francis will lie in state at St. Peter's Basilica beginning today, with the public viewing exercise expected to begin this morning. The funeral mass for the pontiff is scheduled for Saturday morning at the St. Peter's Square, conducted by Cardinal Giovanni Battista, the Dean of the College of Cardinals, before his remains are interred at the Basilica of St. Mary Major.
Early Tuesday morning at the Vatican, Rome, Italy. Approximately 60 cardinals gather in the Synod Hall for the inaugural meeting that would set the pace for the burial program of the late Pope Francis and the election of his successor. A moment of silent prayer for the repose of the soul of Pope Francis, opening the first general congregation of a College of Cardinals. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church, reading to the assembly the testament of Pope Francis. The congregation of cardinals resolved to set the date of the funeral of the Holy Father for Saturday, with a mass set to be held at the St. Peter's Square and officiated by Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, the Dean of the College of Cardinals. But before then, the body will be lying in state at the St. Peter's Basilica, where it will be moved in the morning. The Pope's body will be carried from the chapel of the Casa Santa Marta to St. Peter's Basilica, where the Cardinal Camerlengo will preside over the liturgy of the Word, after which the public viewing will commence until Saturday. This even as Vatican released details of the last moments of the Holy Father. The afternoon after he had offered what would be his last surprise to the 50,000 faithful gathered at the square after the blessing on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, the Pope decided to take a rest and later had a quiet dinner. At dawnbreak Monday, the first signs of a sudden illness appeared, prompting an immediate response from those keeping watch over him. Around an hour later, After making a gesture of farewell with his hand to a nurse who was taking care of him, lying in bed, he fell into a coma. The Holy See Press says he did not suffer, as it all happened quickly. US President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, French President Emmanuel Macron, Brazilian President Lula da Silva, and Polish President Andrzej Duda are among world leaders who have confirmed that they will be traveling to Rome to attend the funeral of Pope Francis.
To China now, where President William Ruto arrived in Beijing, China, for his 5-day state visit aimed at strengthening bilateral ties with the East Asian country. The engagement is aimed at unlocking new opportunities in trade, investment and infrastructure development. And as Abdiaziz Hashim now tells us, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has already met with new prospects from China who are expressing interest in the expansion of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
At exactly 8 p.m. local time, President William Ruto alongside First Lady Rachel Ruto arrived at the Beijing airport in China.
Thank you.
Marking the start of their state visit to the East Asian country. This historic visit that marks the first by an African leader since the Beijing summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation will see President Ruto and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping sign multiple agreements. Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Korir Sing'oei said the president talks with President Xi will center on advancing shared priorities in economic transformation, sustainable development, and global cooperation. The president will also deliver a keynote address at Peking University, where he will outline Africa's vision for inclusive growth, leadership, and cooperation. Ruto is also expected to advocate for the reform of the global financial system, calling for a more fair, inclusive, and predictable architecture that serves the needs of the developing countries. Already, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has met with key investors who will aid in advancing the country's technology and the modernization of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. While meeting with the Huawei's Global Vice President Wang Qi in Beijing, the Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary stated that the expanded partnership with the Chinese tech giant Huawei will accelerate the country's digital transformation. Mudavadi, who also met with the president of BAC International Raymond Luo, urged him to express interest in the expansion of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
To matters education now, where the Kenya National Examinations Council says they are ready to administer the inaugural Kenya Junior School Education Assessment following the rollout of the competency-based curriculum. The Chief Executive Officer, Dr. David Njengere, says the council will release a detailed list of the candidates set to sit for the assessment at the end of April. Joseph Okongo brings us more.
Education stakeholders are meeting in Nairobi for the second annual symposium on the competency-based assessment. The meeting is being hosted by the Kenya National Examination Council with a key focus on interpreting assessment data, reforming administration processes, and expanding accessibility in education.
We collect a lot of data through assessments, and particularly through the competency-based assessment. We start collecting data on each child from grade 3. So it's very important that every child becomes visible to us and we understand what are the equity issues that these children are going through so that we can then advise the government on any interventions that are required.
Speaking during the symposium, NEC Chief Executive Officer Dr. David Njegere underscored the Council's commitment to ensure that aspirations of the competence-based curriculum and competence-based assessment reforms is being achieved, including through the administration of the first Kenya Junior Secondary Education Assessment at the end of this year.
The registration of these learners has already been concluded. We have registered all the learners. We are now cleaning the data, and hopefully by the end of the month, we should be able to share with you exactly how many learners we have registered for the Kenya Junior School Education Assessment.
NEC Chairman Professor Julius Nyabundi, who officiated over the symposium, applauded the Ministry of Education for making significant strides in education reforms to equip learners with necessary skills for a dynamic world.
And a number of things have come up here. First of all, for example, whether maths should be compulsory or not. I think everybody appreciates that forcing maths on everybody is not in anybody's interest.
Meanwhile, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development dismissed claims that learners who are set to transit to senior schools may be forced to choose subjects that they did not study in junior high school.
So if you are to do aviation, there are 2 subjects which you can select, and one of the subjects is physics, another subject is geography. As you move backwards to junior school, which subjects do you get which are related to geography? You will find social studies. Is it?
Well, to other news, 3 people have reportedly gone blind after consuming illicit brew at Kangai village, that is in Mwea West Sub-County, Kirinyaga County. The victims were brought to Kari Dispensary in Kangai with complaints of poor eyesight, where they received first aid treatment before being moved to Kerugoya Level 5 Hospital. Kirinyaga County authorities confirmed that the patients are in stable condition, with investigations in top gear to establish the source of the illicit brew. Early last year, 17 people lost their lives, while several others lost their eyesight in the same area. The 3 are recuperating at the Kerugoya Level 5 Hospital.
Leo masaa ya mwendo wa saa 4 nilipokea simu ya kwamba kuna watu wawili wameletwa hapa Jega Health Center wakiwa wamembwagia pombe, wakiwa hali mahututi. Lakini baada ya kuhudumiwa na madaktari, wakati nimefika wamepata nafuu, wanaweza ona, wanaweza ongea na hali yao si mbaya vile.
Wanasemekana wanakunywa ile pombe halali hii inaitwa jambo. Na sasa kwa wakati wao sasa wako hapa hospitali. Mwaka uliopita tulisika watu 20 kutoka hapo Kangai. Watu 20.
Enforcement for non-compliance alcoholic drinks outlet is still ongoing, and we request bar owners who have not complied to comply to Kirinyaga County Alcoholic Drinks Control Act 2024.
At least 2 bodies have been retrieved and 57 people rescued from a church compound in Opapo, Rongo, Migori County, following a violent standoff between church members and security officers. Melchio St. Joseph Missions of Messiah Africa Church hit the headlines recently after a GSU officer died and was buried in the church compound. Rongo Sub-County Security and Intelligence Committee rushed to the scene and confirmed the incident.
Tensions escalated last week when the family of a GSC officer who was a member of the St. Joseph's Missions of Messiah Africa Church reportedly attacked the church, aided by several local residents. The incident turned chaotic, leaving several worshippers seriously injured, as 2 of them later succumbed to their injuries, having refused medical attention due to their religious beliefs. Jacinta Nachueo, who lost her father during the scuffle, narrates the ordeal.
The police officers requested him to be taken to the hospital, but he did not accept. He refused. He said that he has strong faith, he will be okay, his Lord will heal him. From that day up to yesterday, he was well, walking. So yesterday in the morning, he called me and told me, "My child, we are here with you. Protect my body from the outsiders. Don't let my brothers come and take out my body outside this compound."
Devastated church members are now appealing to the government to intervene and help them get justice.
As we know that nobody can be buried without a valid written burial certificate permit. So people have been buried there. Even them, they were not aware that somebody has died here. Even the church members had actually not even informed them that somebody has passed away.
Hata mliwauliza, unataka kwenda hospitali? Wakasema imani yao inatosha, na kama ni kifo Mungu amejua hiyo ndio njia yao ya kwenda mbinguni. Sasa mnataka sisi tulazimishe mtu, lakini amejua imani yake na ameshika imani yake. Tulifuata utaratibu ya serikali pamoja tena na nini? Unajua haki ya binadamu inakuanga. Sisi hatuwezi zika mtu kama hatujajulisha nini yao, na tena lazima tufuate serikali.
The tragic events prompted swift response from law enforcement from Rongo, who stormed the compound and evacuated the congregants to avert further injuries and destruction.
We have rescued wale ambao tulisikia ni wagonjwa na wengine wako na majeruhi, so wanaenda kufanyia uchunguzi. No, kweli ningesema kwamba kuna watu wawili ambao wamepoteza maisha, lakini chanzo cha kupoteza maisha hatuwezi kusema sahihi because of the postmortem. So tutangojea mpaka postmortem ifanye ndio tujue nini kimefanya wakapoteza maisha.
Authorities have already launched investigations as they call for regulation of religious groups operating in the region. Sentiments echoed by families of the deceased, urging the government to crack a whip and weed out misguided doctrines.
Michael Mwadiga reporting there. Farmers in Angalo village, Arujo location, Homa Bay town constituency are decrying crop losses due to what they say is continued invasion of their farms by hippos from Angalo Beach in Lake Victoria. The farmers say several acres of farmland have been destroyed, with crops such as maize, kale, tomatoes and other horticultural produce severely damaged. They are now calling for government intervention and compensation. Among those affected is Kennedy Ongwae, a local farmer who is leading the call for urgent intervention. Ongwae says the number of hippos encroaching on their farmlands has risen significantly, resulting in widespread damage and economic hardship for farmers.
Lakini manyama inaitwa hippo imetusumbua. Angalia hapa nyuma, unaona vile shamba imekuwa. Hii tunalinda kutoka asubuhi mpaka kutoka saa 12 usiku mpaka saa 12 asubuhi. Na hii kitu iko na uelevu kama binadamu. Tukifukuza hivi na kukujia na nguvu siku hizi. Watu wetu wa game tukiwaambia wanatembea na gari hapa, akikuja na zunguka tu atoki nje, angalia kama hii kitu inakuwa namna gani.
Many of the affected farmers say they depend entirely on their crops to support their families, and with their harvest lost, they face an uncertain future.
There's nothing which can grow up, which can be grown here, which will survive the hippos.
They've appealed to both the government and the Kenya Wildlife Service to step in and find a lasting solution to the problem.
Tumeomba county commissioner aingilie ndani, achukue jukumu kama yeye binadamu anaona vile watu wake wanateseka kuweka chakula walinze watoto. Aambia watu wa game wakuja hapa. Kama sio hivyo, tutatafuta mbinu yote. Tutaenda maandamano. Hata kupita hiyo maandamano, tutafuta mbinu yote tuone kama tutaondoa hizo vitu.
A look at business now, where the government is reviewing postal laws to align them with technological and market trends. Broadcasting and Telecommunications Principal Secretary, that is Stephen Isaboke, says the planned reforms will facilitate the Communications Authority of Kenya to bring new and emerging services in the postal and e-commerce sub-market under its regulatory ambit.
Recent data from the Communications Authority indicates a growth in revenue for Kenya's postal and courier services, with a total of 7.7 billion shillings reported in 2023, an increase from 7.1 billion in the previous year. Specifically, national postal revenue rose by 10.4% to 2.8 billion shillings, and outgoing domestic letters increased by 87.3% to 2.1 million. The service, however, is still struggling to merge with emerging technologies brought about by e-commerce.
The postal industry is operating in a highly competitive environment due to the ever-changing marketplace, which calls for regular oversight.
Broadcasting and Telecommunications Principal Secretary Stephen Isaboke says another thorny issue surrounding growth of the postal sector is harmonization of regulations across borders, which players are saying is acting as a trade barrier and an inhibitor of growth.
I wish to call on the African region to harmonize our ICT policies, to strengthen our cross-border postal networks, share the best practices, forge partnerships with tech firms, and commit to sustainability by ensuring our postal systems are green and resilient.
To navigate this complex landscape, we must come together in partnership. We need stronger partnerships between regulators and operators, government and the private sector, and between national systems and regional blocks.
Saboki spoke during the opening of the Postal Letters Regulatory Forum for Africa, where the continent's postal regulators are set to come up with a unified way forward in pushing for better service delivery and market access for postal services.
It is fitting to have this platform for regulators to fully exchange ideas, share experience, and collectively identify innovative, actionable solutions.
Well, we look at sports now, where newly appointed Principal Secretary in the State Department for Youth Affairs and the Creative Economy, Fikirini Jacobs, has pledged to work closely with the youth in elevating arts and creative industries in the country. Fikirini officially assumed office yesterday. Dan Mwendwa brings us the details.
A warm welcome for Fikirini Jacobs, the newly appointed Principal Secretary for Youth Affairs and the Creative Economy, as he officially assumes office. Speaking after the handover, Jacobs said the department will prioritize identifying and nurturing young talents where it often goes unnoticed in villages, slums and remote counties.
I will, of course, operate an open door policy. I am an all-time comrade. I think it's very important to mention that to us. I'm very easy with interaction. The goal is to help the State Department move.
He also emphasized on building strong partnership with county governments and private sector players to fund and sustain youth programs.
If anything in these state departments, any of the state departments does something good or bad, the effect will not directly be felt from that state department at the beginning. The impact will be felt at the presidency. So when you do something good here, we will be shining, but the presidency will be shining brighter than ourselves.
His words were echoed by the Sports Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya, who noted that they will work closely and unite all youth through sports and creatives.
Our role as State Department and Ministry is basically to create an enabling environment for the youth of our country to realize their potential.
That story by Dan Mwendwa brings us to the end of the news this morning. As always, thank you so much for your time and your company. My name is Marie Yambo, and definitely you can stay tuned for more news updates in our subsequent bulletins. Right about now, I want to give room to my colleague Victor Lowe. He'll be taking you through the Viewpoint, talking all matters politics.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with your music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Wellness is important in our daily lives, so that instead of just surviving, we should be thriving.
Ways to prevent a stroke or heart attack is for you to know what conditions you have. By regular checkup, people don't know they have hypertension, they don't know they have diabetes.
I was pre-diabetic. I was afraid of getting lifestyle diseases because I come from a family that has lifestyle diseases.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
say that tuangalie hivi ama history tubonge tumalize. Look, I did what I had to do. You wanted to sabotage my marriage with Maxine just because of them.
Mzee alikuwa kitaka kupanga mkutano ndio atupange. Ndio sababu mama kusukuma kwa watu wa kanisa. Kile kitendo nenda kufanyia wewe. Mimi nitakuruka na utamba.
My dear, anza kujitayarisha.
Wataka kusema tutafanya I do.
Umeiona? Ni yeye. Baba Felix,
siko sure kama ni mtu mmoja ama ilikuwa watu wawili. But niko sure nilikuwa nafuatwa. Ni aje unaamua kupropose na unajua vizuri sana una hiyo do?
Nilikaa mita 3. Welcome to our new home.
Oh, fancy.
Maybe you enjoy her songs, but behind the powerful lyrics is a broken vessel. Someone that has gone through life just like anyone else.
I think it's something generational that has been there. And until when God opened up my eyes, I had never really seen it. My mother also got married to my dad, who turned out abusive. And so because of that, she left that marriage, but she was also coming from a broken home. So basically, I tried what I thought, what was humanly possible to go for the right man. Sa no money. When the marriage now broke, sorry, the wedding was cancelled, kuna vitu mobs inaku affect kama minister. Yani mbaze mpaka nili choose darkness. I didn't want light. I wanted a place where I could feel hidden from the world.
What is God bringing out? God is bringing
It's time to prophesy.
the best in my
Good morning, welcome back. It's beautiful to have you here on the show. Karibu sana. My name is Victor Olo. As always, the Viewpoint is on. All right, so today let's talk about issues that's affecting us, geopolitically speaking. Let's talk about money, let's talk about economy, let's talk about politics, let's talk about, yes, education as well. So let's start where it should, where we all know that the president is away on a 4-day official tour in China, and already there is a deal out of that country. 130 billion shillings. We'll be taking a look at that and what's in the bag for the president when he comes back to the country. And number two, let's also talk about the issue to the counties. The governors yesterday said that there is a clawback when it comes to devolution. Certain factions are supposed to be devolved, and that was promised by the national government, and they say they need more money. We've talked about this issue for over and over again, but there is no harm in talking about it. But I want us to dig deeper and understand what really is happening when it comes to letting go of some of the functions to the counties, and why there is a bit of some sluggishness, so to speak, when it comes to taking money or allocating money to the counties. And my able guests are already in the studio. I have got Daniel Orogo, who is a political analyst, a gentleman, sharp brain, not new to Jerusalem. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, former NATSEC Gen and a nominated member of parliament, is also in studio.
Good
Mwalimu,
morning.
good morning.
Good morning.
Teachers set to get new allowances in proposed law. Are you happy?
Yes, anything progressive that is going to advance the teaching profession is a good thing.
And he says that teachers to get new allowances proposed law, and teachers fight back in row over 25,000 promoted tutors or tutors.
Well, there are concerns that the 25,000 teachers who were promoted was not properly done. There are a lot of questions that are unanswered, and this puts the employer on the spot in how it does its own things. And I agree, because the moment Teacher Service Commission vacated promoting teachers in accordance with the Code of Regulations and the provisions of Article 72 to 74 of the Code of Regulations, then the tools they are using are wrong.
So there was
and the method they are using. You can't interview over 100,000 teachers only to promote 25,000. It doesn't work that way. Some of the aspects of promotion should be granted automatically based on the number of years a teacher has served, based on the new higher qualifications a teacher is acquiring, and also based on merit. So that then those positions that are dovetailed towards administrative positions can remain for interview.
Okay.
So I think there's a whole dirty approach to the promotion of teachers.
Parliament says that it
by
was
the
fair
Teacher Service
and
Commission.
transparent.
It's the same Parliament that raised a lot of concerns. Yeah.
All right. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
All right. And I also have Jacob Mutula. He's an advocate of the High Court, an activist and economic advisor. Good morning, Mutula.
Good morning.
Karibu sana to the program.
Asante sana.
Okay, let's start where we should. Gentlemen, I think, Jacob, let me start with you. The entire world is mourning, passing on Pope Francis, just hours on the day of Eve of Easter Monday, and here we are. What would you make of the Pope's passing on? Just in 1 minute, if you can. Go ahead.
Really, we extend our condolences to the Christian fraternity and to the Catholic fraternity throughout the world. A loss of a leader is really a big loss to humanity. And he was a revolutionary pope, down to earth, very accommodative, very progressive. And really, we extend our condolences, as we say, to the church and the entire Christian fraternity.
All right. Okay, so, Molimo, again, you're a Catholic?
I'm not a Catholic.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
but I know
the entire world is mourning.
We joined.
The Pope visited the country 10 years ago.
Yes, he visited the country 10 years ago for a visit to the country. And for me, I joined the entire Catholic fraternity across the world in mourning the Pope. And you know, this is one Pope who chose a name of Francis, St. Francis of Assisi, and he associated with the fighting for the poor, the downtrodden, and the rejected in the society. At some point, he was criticized of being cozy with homosexuals, but he said, these are humans. If they come to God, and they're welcomed. I think this is one great Pope in the Catholic Church who really brought in a new approach to looking at things within the church. So I am sure the next Pope will be picking from the philosophy of Pope Francis and lead the Catholic Church to the next dispensation.
Yeah. Daniel, what should you make of him? I mean, people say that he gave a different approach to when it comes to leadership of the Catholic Church. And even when he came to Kenya, remember he met other leaders from other denominations, Christians, I mean non-Catholics, and other leaders from other faiths. I mean, this was unprecedented. And at some point, he also, was not in good books with other people across the world. Some of the leaders who are supporting other ways of governance.
Well, I think, like the rest of my colleagues have mentioned, is to send a condolences message to the whole faithful fraternity. And I think, like you've mentioned, Pope Francis the late was not specific in associating with certain people only. In fact, he has been headlined as a people's pope. and a pope that, you know, was pro-poor. And like has been mentioned, he was a reformist in his papal responsibilities and identified with the downtrodden. In fact, I think reading through a number of publications this morning that has outlined how he rejected, you know, the facilities that he thought that were used by the rich. I mean, you could even see the life that Pope Francis lived, Victor. Some of these things he rejected, what was offered to him. You know, the choice of the car he would use to travel was that small Ford. You remember when he came here, he rejected, you know, his, you know, Pope Palace at Vatican City, and opting to stay in a hotel. You know, those are hallmarks of one who just identified and wanted to live a simplified life. You know, he stepped here at JKIA with a rosary in his hand. Like, people were asking, really, you know, what are we seeing? It was out of, you know, a surprise. Like, people would really expect the heads of state. And remember, that is a head of state, because Vatican is considered as a nation city. And that is why you see him also being accorded a number of, you know, diplomatic, you know, acceptance. He has a place at the UN Security Council as one of the, you know, veto power there. And so apart from that, he was both, you know, a leader of the global faith, but he was also a leader, you know, of a nation that has been accorded, you know, a full diplomatic, treatment. But that being said, we want to focus on, you know, the reform and how people saw him when he came here in 2015, being his first maiden visit to African continent and the African soil, on his way to Uganda and Central African Republic. I think that you could remember very well. Yes. And he gave us, you know, the university dais that has now become a monumental, just here, you know, outside here, that can now be recognized as one of the UNESCO, you know, sites and a monumental that is very important. I think you also remember his message at the University of Nairobi, acknowledging and, you know, beseeching university students, you know, to provide hope in terms of being the beacons of Pan-Africanists, but also in calculating the values, you know, that are faith, that are faith-driven. So I think I really beckon, because then that is where he has joined. You know, he's. They're saying that he has joined the Father of the House, the House of the Father, which means he has transitioned to glory. But much more is it time? Because it's a politics. Is it time to think about the African Pope?
That's the
you know, that is also something that we need to be thinking about.
The standard.
Unfortunately, Kenya will not be participating. Because of various reasons. So
raise the standard.
I think it's on the first page here.
There we have it.
Yeah.
Daniel's camera. Time for Africa on the front page of the standard.
Yes.
That is something to do with the rotation, and there is that sense of it. But you see, there's no campaign about this.
I mean, if it's for
there is no
if it was for Pope Francis that we had first Pope out of Europe. For the first time in history, why then would we not have a Pope from Africa? We have Africans here who had been Cardinal Robert Sarah from Guinea, Cardinal Peter Turkson from Ghana, who is 76 years old, Cardinal Fridolin Ambogo from Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Yes.
Kenya would not be participating on this papal conclave as headlined because our Cardinal John Joe is 81 years, and it's only up to 80 years. So unfortunately, in East Africa, Kenya would not be participating on that.
All right, very good. So let's devolve and come back home. So, Molipo, let's start where we should again. The governors are complaining that the national government is holding a lot of functions, more so when it comes to healthcare, road infrastructure, and specifically, let me quote what Governor Anyang' Nyong'o of Kisumu said, that he said that the government is making devolution the government is not supporting devolution by saying that, accusing it of undermining devolution by clinging to functions that should be managed by counties, particularly on road sector. One of them, the governor said that the existence of the Kenya Urban Roads Authority, KURA, and the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, KERA, was unnecessary and betrayal of the spirit of devolution enshrined in the 2010 Constitution. What do you make of that?
We have seen this new push, and it did not start with Nyong'o. It's a big pressure because governors feel they should be able to do all the roads. For me, I would beg to differ because 12 years down the line, doing audit of county governments, really not much has been done in terms of entrenching the very basic functions that they have. Look at, for example, the medical health personnel. They're struggling to be centralized and to be nationalized. That means certain things are not working right. And it is wrong for counties to try and engage in a dirty fight with the national government rather than engaging in consultations, intergovernmental consultation, and of course the IPEC chaired by the Deputy President is the right forum where the governors should be able to take those issues rather than bringing it to the court of the public. I still believe for roads infrastructure, it can be better done. What national government is doing under KURA and KENA should remain with the national government because county governments lack administrative capacity and infrastructure to implement some of the programs. The fact that quite a number of functions are devolved does not mean the national government cannot involve itself. Look at UHC, the rollout of UHC. It cannot be exclusively mandate of county government. It's a serious collaboration with the national government. At the end of the day, it is the services that reaches that are supposed to get to the mwananchi.
Yes.
So I think the Council of Governors have got to retreat and rethink and look at how effectively they have done the roles which really they are doing, it's within their mandate, like water, like healthcare, like agriculture. How are they participating in fostering even the rollout of UHC so that it takes root effectively? You know, trying to get to a frontier of confrontation between the county and national is not right.
Yeah.
There should be collaboration in the implementation of these programs and execution of certain function. Roads cannot, in fact, even the feeder roads, the I don't know class what, which are given, which are left to the counties. It is so badly done that a lot of money goes into waste from the audit of the Ministry of Roads, Transport and Infrastructure. And it would be better if we have one stop shop for rolling out roads infrastructure across the country rather than sharing out little money and having the money get wasted. So I think the counties might be asking for too much. ECD teachers.
Asking for too much and the Constitution provided for it.
Some of the functions that are being, like roads, does the Constitution expressly say it is absolute mandate of the counties? It doesn't. It really doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't.
But the concern is, why have KURA and KERA in the counties if the counties are capable of doing the roads by themselves?
There is a division in terms of what roads the county should do and what roads the national government should do. It's classified. It is clear. They should focus on what is within their mandate and assigned to them and the money given to them.
Okay.
And the audit in terms of doing of roads, the classes of roads that are assigned to the counties, is that really nothing much has been done. There's been a lot of waste.
Jacob, the Constitution is very open to what should be happening to the counties and what should remain at the national government. But this debate is not new. I think this year alone, this is the third time actually we are doing it. Around a month ago we discussed about this, but it keeps on occurring over and over and over again. Then was the Constitution wrong? As an advocate, who is right and who is wrong? National government, county, or Constitution?
Thank you very much for that question. I think we are undergoing something which we call teething problem. Our Constitution is fairly young. It's roughly approaching 15 years since we gave ourselves this new Constitution.
Yes.
And before we internalize and really implement it, we shall have this push and pull. For many, many years, we were used to a centralized system. We were, in fact, under one-party rule for quite some time, and we got used to that. Central planning, central command center. And when you divest this power and take it to counties, the center still feels it's naked. It still wants to claw back and take back those functions because it's used traditionally to perform such functions.
Yes.
But be it as it may, we need to cede the duties and responsibilities which we have allocated to counties. Really, we've seen our leaders even interfering with the functions of these counties by opening markets which are developed and built by the county governments, purporting that the central government has really put in some money in those markets. But we know that that's a devolved function. We have roads, classes of roads, which are really the purview of county governments. And Kura needs to be in the counties and not anywhere in Nairobi. Because all these urban centers and rural roads like Kera, they are all out there. And then we have in our Constitution 3 types of counties. We have purely rural counties which had no municipalities or urban centers to talk about. We have some which have counties which have both cities, urban centers, and they still have rural areas. And then we have the purely urbanite counties like Nairobi, Mombasa, and the like. They are not at the same level. And to bring them to the same level, we need to divest in the highly developed counties and build capacity in the counties to bring equalization. Devolution is about equity, to bring equity. And I believe the governors are right. I support them. They need to push. The government will always want to hold on, but they need to really force things out so that they have these budgets. And to allocate just 15% of our national resources or revenue to counties, and then we pass so much responsibilities to them, I think is unfair. We need to push the budgetary allocation maybe to 50-50, because
50 national, 50 counties.
Yes, a lot of the work is done at the county.
Is that even feasible?
It is. What does the central government do other than policy, other than foreign affairs and the defense? Most of these other functions have, especially health and education. If you are talking of education at a basic level,
yes,
where you are starting to build a child, that's more important than a university, because it's the foundation of a nation. We've devolved that. So we need to rethink again whether really we are doing the right thing. Look at health, my brother and with due respect, Mr. Sosione has talked about universal health coverage. Once you devolve health, you need to enable the counties to build capacities, both technical, infrastructure-wise, and things like those. Because some of these equipment, like medical equipment, like an MRI machine, they are very expensive. We need really to increase the budgetary allocation and support the skill acquisition by the counties in the health sector, rather than blaming them for their failure. It's us who are failing them.
All right. Dan, there is triple D, devolution, democracy, and development. Those three things. Triple D, development, democracy, and development. These three things, there is a fight. When you look at them, it's not even about devolved functions. It's about these three. So how are you going to separate these three to make sure the national government, as he said, that the central government does not feel like we are used to a certain way of doing things. So status quo must remain, even though the constitution says that we have to devolve this, but zingine zibaki hapa kidogo tu, you understand? So separating the three, is it possible? Because that's where the problem is.
I don't think in reality, and of course, my colleagues have mentioned about after over 10 years of passing of the constitution, and actually it's 15 years, marking the 15th year this year, after passing having a new constitution. But then you can see how there is still misinterpretations about how responsibilities are shared between the national government, which is the central government, and the devolved system of government. Comparatively, I might not really, determine on what pace Kenya should be looking at and, vetting or auditing its progress. Because each and every year what we can only be accorded is by the fact that we're always having an annual devolution conference to probably look at the gains, to probably look at the challenges, and probably look at the opportunities that are ahead with regards to devolved system of government as enshrined in the constitution. And by that it means that the only way we are treated to a conference is just maybe annually looking at what steps have we been making as a country, what are the challenges. And this has religiously been in the country each and every year, save for 2020 when there was the outbreak of COVID-19 and other factor that has hindered the conference. We always have a stock-taking conference to look at, what are the progress. But however, even in the US that has a mature democracy, Victor, you've seen that, President Trump is having a lot of problems with the states in terms of, interpretations of some of these policies, that are affecting the federal government and, other devolved units in the US. So sometimes I try to be very considerate in terms of, putting Kenya into the scope, looking at if a mature democracy like the US still struggles with interpretation, of what the federal government should be holding vis-a-vis what the states, the other states should be having. Then I'm looking at our constitution as probably being progressive in terms of, teething problem
I need to jumpstart
as my colleagues have said.
I need to jumpstart.
Right.
You know why? Do you know why?
Because you need to serve.
I need to jump start it. Let's take a break. We'll break back. Stay with us.
Pindi tunapowasha vifaa vyetu, tunapata fursa ya kutangamana na wasikilizaji wetu.
Karibu sana thĩinĩ wa tabarĩra ya Rwiga.
Tunapeperusha utangazaji ulobobea katika habari,
nĩ ũndũ wa macio na mangĩ maingĩ,
burudani,
nĩ harĩa tũkoragwo tũkĩigua nyĩmbo mwaki nyĩmbo hoda
na hamasisho la kiroho. Usiachwe nyuma. Jiunge nasi kwa safari ya kufana katika 99.5 FM. Shoro FM.
The world of governance is vast and can be alien to the ordinary man on the street.
Critical issues are going to be discussed.
From white papers to policy positions, it is easier to get lost in the labyrinth of words.
Inside Government takes you to key global metropolis where critical decisions are made and where policies are crafted.
We interview policymakers and senior government officials to highlight and enumerate government policies and projects. We take a deep dive into the underbelly of complex red tape to demystify policies across the country, across the world. Join me, O'Brien Kimani, on Inside Government, only on KBC Channel 1.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with our music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Come and run your hotels.
Welcome back. Karibu sana. All of us are now well jump-started, but most importantly, Sosion is now feeling very well. All right, so Daniel, I asked a question about devolution, democracy, and development in Kenya, and more so on devolved units. You're making your submission.
Yeah, I was sorry about that. So before we went to break, I was just saying that it's quite difficult to look at what to use in terms of measuring and prescribing the tremendous steps a country might make. But I think we as a country have an opportunity always to take stock. I think that is what I was mentioning. But I think on what is making the headlines, I also struggle to look at, before then we come in, just and trying to understand where in the Constitution, especially from Article 176, where is it really mentioned that the handover of, to devolve units would include, roads. I struggle, maybe Wakili would probably chip in, but then would the absence in terms of explicitly mentioning some of these devolved responsibilities would also be then a gray area that exposes us to the legal and political tasks that we are witnessing between the national government, and the devolved unit. So I think the Constitution in specific parts have been very clear on certain devolved functions. Like health, those controlling leak and licensing and all those things, looking at some aspects of, that has been very clear when you look at that particular. But these, maybe we are getting better, we can be told. Matters of Kenya Urban Roads Authority or Kenya Rural Roads Authority, to me, probably is a gray area that needs a lot of political and legal interpretation for the country to understand then what is the source of the tussle.
But I think in this case it would be more political than legal. Because
exactly, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That
the Constitution is explicit about it.
One of the push of this particular transition has been, the boundary between political and legal tussles between these two cadres of government, probably including what we are talking about right now. But also, could it also be the that the devolved functions and governance are realizing that the National Assembly, because the role of the National Assembly has also been conflicted. Whereas, as 2 weeks ago, you saw the ODM leader reprimanding the members of parliament.
Yes.
You understand that to make sure that they respect the devolved units or the responsibilities that were there, they should not be used in terms of trying to, hinder the functioning of devolved government. The courts ruled previously against what is called the Constituent Development Fund, and then there was a twist to call it a national government, to fit the law. But if you look at legally, CDF, it's not, the governors are claiming that those particular monies would actually be devolved, and the only container, only platform that accepts devolved funds is the devolved system of government, and not really the constituencies, as it were in the previous constitution. So then you could see there is a lot of, tussling that does not only touch the national government or the executive, but also looking at the National Assembly in its functions, in terms of the legislative policies, in terms of the oversight. How are these funds, devolved funds, being used? They should be allocated also to the national members of National Assembly. So there is a lot of dynamics within, not just governors reading, misreading the script, but I think it's more political because they have realized that members of parliament are equally eyeing, some of these particular responsibilities.
Quite interesting. Then should we force a political process to devolve all the functions? Because legally speaking, we've had so many legal interpretations in as far as devolution is concerned. And again, he's also talking about the National Assembly not doing its part to the extreme end that's supposed to be. So are we supposed to have a forceful political intervention to this?
No, we can't have a forceful political intervention. The debate should go on. It is healthy. There's nothing wrong. The governors raise what they're raising. But I think what is important is the IPEC forum that the Deputy President chairs and Intergovernmental Budget, Economic and Budget Committee that is able to identify certain critical roles and activities and programs that must be funded and is funded. The Constitution was wisely drafted so that at whatever level we cannot have very adversarial conflicts. But I think what is happening is ideological suggestions from the counties that should not escalate to deteriorated conflicts. At the end of the day, we are debating about development, whether it's national or counties. And I think we should have a more sanitized way of governance so that it doesn't look like the national government and the county government, there is a red line and an electric fence between the two. There's a point of convergence. That's a fact for sure. None of, if we talk of health, it is devolved. But at the national government, you have the Ministry of Health. That superintends the execution of all this. And to the extent of what counties does and what national government does is very clear in the Constitution. And these are items for continued conversation. All this is about leadership and how we perceive it. Because at the end of the day, the programs must be executed. Why did we fight for devolution? Because there was an equal development. Some parts of the country were perceived to be receiving more development resources than others. And 12 years down the line, and with the Ruto administration, if you look at the key flagship areas, it really touches on activities that touches on devolution and which are dear to the people. For example, agriculture. Development, agriculture is devolved. But you see, do the governors believe they can do agricultural programs on their own? No. Look at the program for fertilizers and other policy intervention nationally, and they need the national government most so that they are able to drive it, so that they're able to work on it. And this is where collaboration comes in. Look at housing. Look at housing. No.
Are you trying to say that counties do not have enough?
Allow me.
Or skill?
They can't do it on their own. A national government cannot preside over those particular functions without the collaboration with the counties. For example, we are rolling out universal housing. It's a national model, and it's a national program, but it's being implemented at the counties.
Yes,
that's where there has to be collaboration, agreement, and how to deal with it and how to implement. Because eventually we need to roll out housing across the country. It's being done. Look at UHC, for example. How do we make it work? The questions we should be asking is, how best can we approach all these programs without national and counties conflicting or fighting for resources? When I look at, for example, counties wake up one day and say, no, CDF should be given to us.
Yes.
I think that is it's a blind argument. It's uncivil, to say the least. Because look at the history of CDF. It started in 2003, before even the writing of the Constitution. And it has worked very well for 22 years. Having worked in that space, things to do with Harambes for schools are now forgotten. So that is a fund that cannot be removed. It's a fund that needs to be protected. It's working for the good of the people of Kenya. And for governors to say, no, give us that money, I don't think they are being sincere. What we need to talk about here, what we need to talk about here, and what governors need to do, is to campaign for more resources for their programs, and programs that invite collaboration with the national government.
Yes,
it should be done within agreed framework. Okay. Yeah, it should be done within agreed framework. But you don't take adversarial position and start issuing statements that the national government is killing devolution.
Wakili is not agreeing with you.
In fact, Kenya Kwanza administration is complementing a lot the devolution programs in this country. And of course, as a country that is faced with limited resources, you have seen the debate on the shareable revenue allocation to the counties. It's a big issue. So I think we can think progressively rather than think and act retrogressively.
We are progressive.
Yes. Let us be progressive.
Yes, Jacob.
I do disagree with the strong sentiments from my brother, Honorable Sosion. I think we need to remember that devolution is not new in Kenya. In fact, our independence constitution had Majimbo, and we had the Senate, we had the same institutions, although the units, the devolved units were fewer, but the approach...
They were few in terms of provinces?
Yes.
Yes.
The approach was more fragmented because it was tearing the country apart, and we had to do away with devolution. But it was a mistake. We should have modified and corrected what was not working. I remember very well in my area, because I come from Coast Province, we used to have the so-called indigenous people walking around and telling us, you will pack and go where you came from. And there were usual tensions, especially every election cycle and things like those. But fast forward, our 2010 constitution has tried to mitigate these pulls and pushes. And the confusion which we are faced with is merely because we are running a unitary system, because we have a unitary state by the Constitution. Kenya is a unitary republic de jure. And we are trying to introduce a concept from federalism, which is devolution. We are doing devolution, not decentralization. There are two distinct concepts. To decentralize is just to take certain functions out of a central place. But devolution means you cede power and share power, planning, implementation with units. You are not doing everything. In decentralization, you have still a central command which orders. But in devolution, we have unitary planning. One county, Machakos County, can decide our priority is water, while Kiambu County decides its priority is infrastructure, roads. And roads and public works, maintenance of buildings and things like those, including the so-called affordable housing, is a devolved unit, functions of the devolved governments. Really, the central government is putting its nose in the wrong place. Its work is policy. Should make policy to guide, should formulate enabling policies, should enable these counties to look for funds other than relying on just the budgetary support.
Yeah.
Because counties are enabled by the Constitution to invest, to look for funds, to borrow loans for its own development. And really you plan what is priority for you.
Do you think counties can perform by themselves? Mwalimu Sossion says that they don't have enough manpower or capabilities or skill to, you know.
It is laughable. It is laughable to say counties don't have the skills. Where do we come from? All of us come from counties. We have been used to serving in Nairobi. All these doctors, all these lawyers, all these engineers. If you have to ask them, all these teachers, they come from counties, really.
Exactly, yes.
And when we talk of manpower, what are we talking about?
The manpower in terms of, you'll still have to consult more from the national government, all right? More from the national government. When we talk of policy making, the National Assembly sits here. That's part of the national government. So a lot of functions that will be devolved to the counties will have to pass some of the legislative processes.
The counties have county assemblies.
County assemblies are there.
Which are there, and their purpose is to actually legislate on their own rules and regulations within the counties. They are supposed to control traffic, for example, investment, education, health. They are supposed to make their own internal rules and laws, which should not conflict with the national law. But national government is putting its nose in the wrong place.
Okay, then Daniel, are we
bad manners.
Then are we as a country trying to illustrate the pitfalls and call it and promises in the Constitution? Are we illustrating both at the same time?
Well, I choose not to view it that way, because that's what I said in the beginning, that it could be very difficult to provide a yardstick to measure the progress of only 15 years after the passing of this constitution. And that's what I've said. We would be very realistic with the challenges we are facing within terms of implementing a devolved system of government. In fact, because I know you're going to discuss about education. You remember even in the Article 10, principles of national government and principles of national values, and you can get that they're even mentioning devolution as one of them in Article 10. So what does that mean? That the prime, the attention we give to devolution, as well has been illustrated by, Wakili here, then it should be a priority that some of these particular functions that I've mentioned in the Constitution, by now we could be seeing a non-interfering transition to them 15 years after passing of this Constitution. But like I've said, it is probably the 3 Ds you've mentioned, that it takes a lot of legislative, it takes a lot of policy-wise, administrative-wise, but even legally to understand if the national government is ready to cede some of the responsibilities, to the county government. Because some of these particular responsibilities, as mentioned in the devolution article on how, we should transition, some of them, they believe, is what Sossion is embodying here, that you understand, that believe that the national government say that the counties cannot manage them. How do you know they cannot manage them? Because the citing is that we do not have enough personnel, we do not have qualified people to do them. But that's what I've told you. If you listen to the success that have been always being mentioned at each and every year devolution conference, of a road that has worked to certain counties, then you appreciate that certain counties in the northern frontier, for example, for the first time saw roads that they did not see them, courtesy of devolution. You could see certain counties for the first time are receiving healthcare that sometimes they had to trade or use
animals to get or use, other modes of transport to get to access these facilities. Those particular small progresses are courtesy of a devolved system of government. What we need to agree here is, and again, that's why I said I'm a bit, objective with this conversation. There could be fear that are we able to cede enough responsibility to the county government? For example, on construction of roads, on certain cadres of roads or certain aspects of road construction, certain aspect of universal healthcare, are they at a point where the county can be able to manage them? But that can only be answered then. What is the tussle? Is it a legal issue? Anything that is enshrined in the Constitution then should be looked at with the
Let me
view
ask
of the
a question just based on what you're saying.
Yes.
Then what would be the best way to have devolution without disruption? A clear pathway to a new Kenya. Basically this way. What danger would the national government suffer if the entire section of devolution is devolved?
Well, I only foresee a problem in terms of transition. For me, I see a problem in terms of just reading out how much. There is nothing for me as a fear factor except for, I'm going back to what I said, politics and legal issues.
Yes.
How much can we receive responsibilities and power to a devolved system of government where governors now have full authority in terms of making certain decisions? And on the flip side, I also agree with those Osioni is saying, what can happen when we, for example, entirely give a unit?
That's my question.
A full power, a full political, legal power, administrative power, and a policy power. I mean, we have seen the responsibility even with the county assemblies. What happens to the county assemblies when they are given full throttle control of county resources? We've seen how county assemblies behave, and not all of them. So I think there are those particular careful attention that the national government also looks at, but that should not be a pretense in terms of trying to devolution.
Molimo, what if it's fully devolved? Let's just, hypothetically speaking.
There's nothing wrong.
Then why should it not be?
And if resources follow, there's absolutely nothing wrong. All these arguments we are making here, I think we are lost in the confusion of the whole program. And we cannot be theoretical, but we must be practical. Let's accept that as a country, 12 years down the line, we've made tremendous achievement in devolution.
True.
In getting the administrative units work, in giving it the right traction. But of course, there are questions on gaps on effective delivery of its mandate. Of course, there are questions. But that does not mean the national government is trying to claw back the roads. No, it is only complementing. Because if roads are made in Kitui, for example, those roads don't belong to Nairobi. It belongs to the people of Kitui. If hospitals are built in Bomet, those hospitals are not domiciled in Nairobi, but they work to complement the healthcare delivery services within that particular county. What I'm arguing about is effective collaboration as provided for by the Constitution. Before even you go to the devolution conference, the IPEC meeting, the forum, chaired by the Deputy President, is critical. So that there, you are able to apply your minds on literally every program of devolution and funding. What I disagree with is when people wake up one day, because I've seen arguments, that, education was not devolved because NAT threatened to shoot down the referendum, which is true. We stood and we said, it is too early for this country to devolve education. We still need unified national quality education delivery managed from the center. Other things can be devolved. And we were listened to. And that is why teachers remain centrally employed. In fact, TSE was to be obliterated. We wouldn't have had it as Chapter 15 commission, but we argued for the case. The doctors were unable to. Look at what is happening with the doctors. This is a real problem. It's too much for the counties to deal with the human resource and to deal with the infrastructure and to deal with the program. I think sometimes they wanted to do literally everything, which really, we've got to do things gradually. Eventually, in the long run, if certain aspects and functions that have been given to the counties are effectively delivered, and you convince the country that it can be done, then other functions can follow. You know, devolution has to be progressive. It cannot be a bomb that is thrown instantly without requisite preparation. You see, Victor, I've seen arguments now talking about that education must be devolved, because in other jurisdictions it is devolved. It is true, even in South Africa and many others. But you see, as a country, we've done very well to mount the best education because of good centralized management. And we are talking about national unity, the goals of national education. There are things that you can devolve. And that is one. I've seen the attack on CDF. I'm one defender of CDF, because 90% of CDF goes to expansion of infrastructure of basic education, including bursaries. And we have seen counties trying to give bursaries to basic education, which I am not opposed to that. That is part of corporate community responsibility. And nobody has questioned why they are doing it, yet it is not their mandate. There are points of convergence we must accept. The issue here is that are the Council of Governors providing the right leadership to engage and negotiate properly with the national government on how to implement these programs? Is the national government very obstinate about the issues being raised by government? No. In fact, the president is so open to the governors and is so passionate about the devolved units operating. That's a fact for sure. And we must accept. Why are we in leadership, both at the national and counties, to deliver to the people of Kenya? And the urgency to deliver to the people of Kenya is what must drive us. Let us not prod conflicts.
Okay.
Let us not prod conflicts which are not necessary at this time. Let us deal with what is on the menu, what is on the table.
Let me get
so that it
Let me
works.
get to final words on this, because now it's quite important. So how do we achieve it? In 30 seconds, Wakili, can we have devolution without disruption? But Mwalimu says that there should be a collaboration between the national and devolved units.
Which is in the Constitution.
Yes.
The two units are entirely
we cannot.
Yes, it is.
We cannot have lack of disruptions, these pulls and pushes, because we are dealing with human beings. Some of us are conservatives. We are used to centralized power to control everything. Remember, the president faces an election just like the governors. And if you have a well-performing governor, he can really challenge you at the national level. So it is in the best interest of the president not to allow governors to grow and challenge his power.
That's a different way of looking at it.
No, that's a different agenda.
That's what I said.
So they do indirectly frustrate. There is the politics.
That's a different way of looking at
There
it.
is
that's a
politics.
different
And you must agree,
altogether.
there are liberals and conservatives in every society.
Right.
The other aspect which we need to look at is whether having gotten used to a centralized system for over 40 years, really we can wake up and just transition. So these teething problems will always be there.
Okay.
It's for us to negotiate the paths and discuss and understand what we gave ourselves. A very powerful constitution which wants to lift the entire republic and create uniform development for all Kenya.
Very well. Gentlemen, I'm sure you're running out of time, but I want to give you, the president is in China, Daniel. As a student of international relations and policies, anything good coming out of it? Already 130 billion shillings signed already? There's a deal to that? What more should we expect?
I am yet to, is it a loan? Is it a grant? Is it whatever? I mean, whatever comes, because then we just give me a small time, at a point where, before even we come to 130 billion, I am happy for the first time that we are neither west or east.
That is the question I wanted to ask.
But we are moving forward. Very important point. And I congratulate the president for always saying that we must resist the temptation to be caught in the fights of geopolitics. Because if that happens, we might not make a tremendous progress in our international diplomacy. I am also happy by the fact that, it is a state visit that has been organized in the background of a trade war. Remember, in the background of a trade war between
the East and the West.
Between the East and the West. Yes. So we are also hit by a tariff, just like any other, countries that are, transacting with America. So it is good that our foreign players are looking towards reaching out to other countries, especially on the East. But now the problem is in the content of the negotiation, because are we looking at a different loan facility? Are we looking at a different financial model that is not hitting us with, accumulated interest and a higher interest even as we pay? Are we negotiating for a facility that looks more of a grant, or probably would look half grant or half a loan?
Yeah.
Because we already loaned, and the World Bank and multinational, financial institution has already raised a red flag with our national debt and international debt.
Just to put it into context, the 130 billion shillings is meant to jumpstart the failed Hilton and Intercontinental hotels.
Yes. And remember, we are also negotiating for the Malaba Highway. You also remember that. And partly, SDR that is stuck somewhere. I think that is what I saw. The problem is not really getting loans, but the value of these loans. Because this is where the tussle has been. That we are negotiating to get more, but then are we able to show so much that this is what it's translating into? That has been the problem of the country. And I agree that it's for the first time. I'm appreciating the visit, because not so many of these countries, as a student of international diplomacy also, not so many of these countries are invited to have a sitting with a nation that is within the G7. So I think we are looking towards where we are coming from. And I think China-Kenya relationship must be based on mutual interest. It must be based on a certain interest that is a win-win for both the nationals in the country. Very good. But can we also look at other frontiers of development, global technological development, because this is where the world is going to. China has been, a player in the global technology.
You need 20 seconds to
Yes.
He's 20 seconds.
Kenya-China relationship is part of the African agenda to unlock development of Africa, and Africa for a long time has worked with the West, and when China came into Africa, Africa has realized tremendous development and unlocking of its potential. And if you look at Kenya, China has done a lot in terms of collaboration in development. You can trace back to the era of Moi, and you look at what they call Kasarani Moi International Sports Center. That was a major infrastructure with the Chinese, and we are doing the standard gauge railway with the Chinese. And the standard gauge railway is not a Kenyan affair, it's a continental affair, so that it must extend to Malaba. It cannot remain hanging midway.
Okay.
And that's an obligation of China, including the dual highway from all the way to Malaba. This will be done. We cannot look at any other. Our collaboration with China makes a lot of sense, and opening up other infrastructure services is good. So I think the president's visit to China is going to enhance Kenya-China relationship and unlock economic potential and activities in many other areas. When you talk of Hilton and India, yes, when why are you born on an epidemic?
It is the director. Wakili, allow me not to give you are we good with the relationship Kenya-China? One word, yes?
Yes, Kenya has been a friend of China even before independence.
Yes.
And if you recall, China was one of the funders of the Mau Mau movement during our struggle for freedom. But we've never taken a full advantage of our relations with China.
But here we are now.
China was the first country to open a foreign mission in Kenya at independence.
Thank you.
They built the Tazara Railway in 1970s. We never took advantage of our relations with China. But I commend the president having taken the initiative to follow the footsteps of
I promise we'll write back so that when the
Yes.
president is back, we'll take a look at some of the goodies that he'll have in the basket once he's back. Right now we can just speculate, but once he's back, we'll be able now to evaluate one by one and talk about it. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. All right, we're just right about time. Where we come from, we said meet Karumi. Daniel can say that. Yes, it's always sweet when you're almost ending. My name is Victor Lo. Daniel Orogo. Yeah, your tea is gone. Daniel Orogo, political analyst. Wilson Sosion, former Nat Secgen and nominated member of parliament. Jacob Mutula is an advocate of the High Court, an activist, and also he has got so many titles. I wish I had more time. I would have said them all. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Let's take a break. Good Morning Kenya continues after this. Good morning.
Elimu ni taa, gizani uzaga.
Elimu ni bahari isiyokauka zinge.
Karibu katika sanaa ya Kiswahili, bahari yenye kina kirefu.
Sote tumeandika, hii kweli ni balaa.
Bila shaka tunazama na tukiibuka vipaji, talanta mbalimbali ndani ya sanaa ya Kiswahili.
Nina neno kwa vijana, mihadarati na pombe, ila madhara mabaya.
Kuna bunge la mwanafunzi, uchambuzi wa vitabu na kulizamia swala zima la fasihi.
Mchimba shimo huingia mwenyewe.
Kwa hivyo unasoma dondoo, alafu unabahini ni fani gani ambayo tunaichokea.
Ipate chemsha bongo bila tafadhali wala kibali.
Na si hayo tu, mtazamaji.
Kumbuka, ni sanaa ya kipekee. Tuchangamkie Kiswahili,
tufurahie sanaa.
Greetings in the name of the Most High, Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the positive warrior, alongside...
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest. Each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra. Extra niceness of reggae music.
Extra dose of entertainment.
When the thing is nice,
we have to do it twice.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with our music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Greetings in the name of the Most High, Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the positive warrior, alongside...
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest. Each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra. Extra niceness of reggae music.
Extra dose of entertainment.
When the thing is nice,
we have to do it twice.
Zote na salamu zimfikie Hashimu.
Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam aliongeza kuwa nyumba ya Muislamu inapaswa kuwa tofauti kwa kupambwa na mambo tofauti.
Unakuta nyumba yetu tumeweka vitu ambazo ni za hatari na tunawaruhusu watoto wetu pia wanatizama vitu kama zile, tunafanya wanamsahau Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
It's mad, straight mad. Mama went the long way, never came back. Stuck up in the hallway, I never made that. Till I found a lost way, I never straight back. Sit and meditate that.
The young generation awakens on Y254, the leading youth TV station in Kenya. We treat you to current affairs, entrepreneurship, health, and human interest conversations.
It's art, it's culture.
Movies, gossip and trends, sports, drama.
We bring you a vibe like no other, straight to your living room.
To keep you informed, inspired, entertained, and most of all, refreshed.
We are such a vibe.
Y254. Imagine.
All right, and Good Morning Kenya gets to continue. Thank you for staying with us. Now we get into a conversation that we really, really need to have, and that is a conversation on sexual assault. And to be specific, we will be talking about sexual assault awareness. And this is in line with the fight against gender-based violence. And joining me for this conversation this morning, I will begin with a lady. We have Sumaya Ruguru. Sumaya is the founder and CEO, Sumaya Foundation. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and right next to Sumaya, we have Raphael Mwatu. Raphael is the Managing Director, Sumaya Foundation. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, so I want us to begin, first of all, by you just telling me what Sumaya Foundation is all about. We can begin with you as the founder.
Okay, thank you so much. So since 2021, we've been dedicated to providing comprehensive support to survivors of gender-based violence and sexual gender-based violence. Our focus extends beyond crisis intervention to include prevention, education, and advocacy. We also strive to address, challenge, and transform the societal norms that perpetuate these forms of violence against vulnerable boys, adolescent girls, and young women.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you've included the boys too, because most times when we talk about gender-based violence, people tend to assume that it can only be against the girl child. Probably you can talk on that.
Yeah, the numbers are really high for the guys, and the big problem is boys don't really speak out, but that's something we're trying to do. We want to create a safe space where the boys can feel heard and they can feel like it's a safe place where they can bring out their issues and we can help them out.
Why did you decide to join this foundation?
Personally?
Yeah, personally. Yourself.
I saw what they were doing, first of all, and I was really touched by it. So there was a time, there was something going on X, formerly Twitter, and there was a conversation where people were sending anonymous stories of what they are doing, and there were so many guys there, and people didn't know what to do. Like, they didn't know what to do, and they were just quiet, and they were saying, I can't even tell my parents, I can't tell this and that. And I just felt like, in high school I was a prefect, so I just felt like that leadership was calling me to come and encourage them to just come and speak up and see there's someone else who's doing this and feel, okay, so men can also be part of this conversation, men can also be part of the change that we want to see.
What brought about the idea of you deciding, okay, I'm going to start this thing whereby we're going to be dealing with young boys and young girls, just what brought about this idea?
So Sumaya Foundation was born out of a quiet and painful realization that grew louder in my heart during the global #MeToo movement back in 2020, as he said. So the #MeToo movement is a social movement and awareness campaign that encourages women to publicize their sexual assault stories. So I remember as I was reading through the stories of countless number of women globally and even in Kenya and more so in Nairobi, that day something in me shifted because those girls could have been me, some of those girls were me. And I knew from that point that I couldn't be a bystander to the silence, fear and shame of so many women. So I decided to do something about it. So by nature, I'm not a conformist. I'm a very skeptic person. So I decided to educate myself first. So I dove deeper into the conversation and I did a few SRHR courses online. So in 2021 is when I founded Sumaya Foundation. And not because I had all the answers or I knew everything, but because I wanted to create a safe space where survivors were heard, and not only heard, but also believed, and they received the care they need. And where education was used as a tool for healing and prevention.
Yeah. And when you talk about sexual assault, probably if you were to define what that is, how does that look like? What exactly is sexual assault?
So I can answer. So sexual assault, the broader term is defined as any sexual act, attempt to obtain the sexual act, unwanted sexual advances or comments directed towards a person's sexuality without their consent, irregardless of the relationship between the perpetrator or the victim. But also according to the Kenyan law, you can simplify it into 4 parts. So if you're able to prove, number 1, there was lack of consent, and number 2, there was penetration, and number 3, the sexual act itself. So if you're able to prove those things, then it can amount to sexual assault. Yeah.
So sexual assault has to be the sex bit, like there has to be a penetration.
Penetration, yes. According to the Kenyan law, there has to be a penetration. But the broader term, it can also include unwanted sexual comments or advances.
So according to Kenya's law, that's where
there has to be penetration.
Happening. But if we talk about sexual assault generally, I believe it happens even in our day-to-day, unfortunately, because, you know, something as just the other day I was seeing a clip of a guy, you know, just spanking a lady out of nowhere on the streets. Like you just, that's also sexual assault.
Groping happens a lot, really.
And even when you look at some of the, you know, statistics, it shows like that in our lifetime, probably as ladies, you know,
5.
At least one in every, you know, in every 5 has or will get to experience sexual assault in our lives. Just how unfortunate is that, you know, even speaking as a boy child?
I think it's really unfortunate we have such going on, and I think it's high time we have more of these conversations, not just during the Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April. I think it's high time we have these conversations even in our workplace, everything, everywhere we are, even in the matatus, anywhere, just have these conversations so that most people aren't aware that it's sexual assault. So for most guys, for example, the example you're saying for spanking, most guys don't know that sexual assault. They just know, this girl looks nice.
Wow.
So it's high time we have to educate all these people that, you know, you have to get consent to do that. You just don't do whatever you want to do without the consent of
and
the
it's
other
someone
person.
you don't know.
You
I
don't
mean,
know.
it's just on the streets, honestly speaking. So where exactly do we need to start these conversations? When exactly do you feel this conversation should begin, you know?
As early as now. As early as now. We are trying to incorporate as many people as we can. As she said, we've done this without being experts in the field. We've gone and educated ourselves to the level that we are right now. We started without knowing much in the topics. So even whoever is listening to this, whoever is there, you can start with even just going to the YouTube, to go into the internet and just educating yourself and just reading about what's there, reading about consent and just understanding the subject on your own.
Probably if you can add on to that, like, how does that look like, us starting this conversation, you know, us ensuring that we are raising a society that is human, because that's just the word. We need to be human, and then after that, then we won't be hearing of cases of gender-based violence or sexual assault, whether on the boy child or the girl child.
I feel like the first step, and it was also the first step for Sumaya Foundation, was education. Because once people know that sexual assault is X, Y, and Z, and the types of sexual assault are, you know, for example, rape, catcalling, and domestic violence. Once someone has the education, then the awareness comes, because you can't have awareness without education. So I feel like the first step should be education. And as Raf has said, it's your duty, you know, to educate yourself. And when you're consuming media on the internet, make sure you're really critical, because there's also a lot of misinformation. So you need to be very critical on what you're consuming on the media. Make sure it's from a reliable source. Yes.
So you work with survivors?
Yes.
Mainly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But most of our work centers around creating awareness. Yes. And the age group we work with is adolescent girls and young women, and also vulnerable boys. Yes.
You work with, sorry, my director was speaking to me, so I didn't hear what she was saying. Kindly, if you can just...
I said most of our work is centered around creating awareness, and the age group we focus on is adolescents and young people. Yeah.
All right. When you're working with survivors, just how does that look like? Because these are vulnerable people. These are very, I would use the word traumatized people. So how does that look like when you're working with survivors?
I think the most important thing is to allow them to process and give them that space where they can process whatever has gone on. You can't push them towards whatever you think is right. Like, for example, go and report or do that. You just have to advise them, tell them these are the options that you have. So whenever you're ready, you have to do this. You can do this and this and that. So you have to be really, really patient with them, and you have to give them that listening ear, so that they can talk to you, they can feel, they can trust you, and that's when the healing journey can start.
Yeah. What kind of immediate maybe support should be available for the survivors?
I feel like the most important one is the medical treatment, because you need those tests and the results, so you can be able to now build a strong legal case, which makes it now easier to even hold the perpetrator accountable for his or her actions.
So how I want to understand how you get to work with them, like practically, how are you working with them, and where does it all start? Do you try find out, okay, there's someone who apparently I've heard was assaulted, or do they come looking for you? Just take me through that.
Yeah. So for us, that's why I told you the first step is education, because it's actually very essential, because it puts us out there, because we conduct outreach programs in secondary schools and also in communities. So in that, we are able to put ourselves out there, because most of the time survivors don't really come out or don't even realize they've been assaulted. So we extend that grace, and we put ourselves out there so that we can also be recognized as a reliable ally for them, to be like, okay, I've heard of Sumaya Foundation and they do this and that, and I can come to them. So if a survivor comes to us, so we act as a bridge now between survivors and their respective source of help. So we have a law firm, the Yashim Rukungu and Mongela and co-advocates, who are very generous and offer pro bono. So they deal with cases that we forward to them. And we also have a medic, she's called Nahia, who also handles the medical aspect of it. So in case a survivor comes to us, we're able to connect with them and they can get the help they require. Yes.
And also to add on to that, sorry. When we do these outreach programs in secondary schools and the communities, usually get young boys and girls who it's after the fact. So they've been assaulted a while back, they didn't know if it's even assault. So they usually provide a session where they can ask questions, and then they're anonymous. So they just write in a piece of paper, then we go around collecting, then we can answer. So during this time we get people who've been assaulted, or they are going through assault even in the process, in their homes or whatever. So when we experience the guys who've been assaulted a while back, but they've not known how to move on from it, we now bridge them towards even mental health experts who can help them process. And if they want to seek justice, we have the Yashim and the team to help them with that.
So you're all-rounded.
It takes a community, really.
And that's really amazing. It's really amazing. Now, you've talked about the fact that, when you go to schools, excuse me, when you go to schools, you get to find out that there are young people who probably might have been assaulted, but they didn't really know that it was assault. So maybe just how rampant are these cases? Because, you know, when you talk about high schoolers, these are very young people, 13-year-olds, 13 to 18, right?
Yeah.
So just how rampant are these cases, even in high schools?
I think mostly, especially the boys' schools we go to, most of the boys don't know it's assault.
Oh,
or
really?
they're being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention the school, but there's a school we went to, and after the event, now everyone is going back to the activities. A boy who came to us and said, there's this girl I like, blah, 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 but the mom also wants things to do with me. But you know, this young boy thinks, I am a man, how can I say no to sex? How can I, what kind of man will that make me if I'm saying no to a woman that wants me? So this boy was wondering, is it right? What should I do in this case? Because yes, she's older than me. Yes, she's still beautiful, but she's the mom of the girl I want. So what should I do? Like most of the boys.
Oh, that's messy.
Yeah. So most of the boys aren't aware of these things, of people taking advantage of them.
So they don't know what exactly that is. They can't put a name to it.
There's a lot of misinformation going on, and also myths surrounding sexual assault. And in relation to boys, especially the consent part, most boys feel like they don't have to consent, and we now have to remind them that, you know, you do have to consent and you don't always have to agree to sex. And even during the high school sessions, we let them know that, you know, you're minors. You are unable to consent. Yeah, so, you know, there's a group of people who also cannot be able to consent. So these are minors or intoxicated persons, elderly persons. These people are unable to consent. Yeah.
How does that conversation look like, you know, with the young ones?
Yeah.
Like, what exactly are you telling them, you know, to get it to their level? I'm imagining maybe even primary schools, if you speak to the young ones, how does that conversation look like?
Our approach is usually friendly-like, because we don't want them to see us as, you know, big authoritative figures. So we approach them more like elder siblings, you know, the ones they can really trust, and that really helps us gain their trust. And, you know, it's not, our age gap is not that big, because we are also young ourselves. So it helps us to meet them at the level they're at, and now it creates a space for them to open up and also speak about their experiences.
We try and make it as
And before you even jump onto that, how about we take a break and then we come back to continue the conversation? Let's take a break. We'll be back in a bit.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with your music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam aliongeza kuwa nyumba ya Muislamu inapaswa kuwa tofauti kwa kupambwa na mambo tofauti.
Unakuta nyumba yetu tumeweka vitu ambazo ni za hatari, na tunawaruhusu watoto wetu pia wanatizama vitu kama zile, zinafanya wanamsahau Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
It's mad, straight mad. Mama went a long way, never came back. Stuck up in a hallway, I never made that. Till I find a lost way, I never straight back. Sit and meditate that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Good Morning Kenya. My name is Vivian Degwa, and we're having a conversation on sexual assault awareness. And I'm joined by two young people who have taken it upon themselves to ensure that they just make some changes, however small they can. Before we took that break, we were just talking about how you're able to just get to speak to the young ones on this matter that is very sensitive. Sometimes it's not really spoken about. Yes. And it's unfortunate that, you know, some of these conversations, we should be having them at home, you know, in the family setup and all. But most times, parents maybe don't know how to start such conversations and whatnot. So I was just, before we took the break, you were actually jumping on to what she was saying about, you know, how you just try to be on the same level with them so that they are able to open up to you.
Yeah, so before we even start the sessions, we try and have as much fun with them as possible. So you can even put music. Yeah. We try and tell them, we dance, like we just get them loose and relaxed. So once we've started the session, we talk to them, they realize, oh, this is not like a class session that we'll go and sleep, that we'll start dozing off. We try and make it as fun as possible. So that by the end of the session, these guys are really comfortable around us. They usually don't even want to leave us. It's just to come and chase them. So we want to create that space where, oh, this is Raf, this is my big bro, this is Sumaya, my big sister. Like I can tell him anything, because I can't tell my mom and dad this for some reason, but Raf and Sumaya, let's tell them. Like, So you just have to just try and create that friendly atmosphere with them.
You know, with the story that you had you just gave us some moments ago on the guy who's a minor but the mother of this chick that, you know, which is a crazy story. You know, it's unfortunate that, I don't know if you've heard of this, but even when you speak to some of your friends, especially gentlemen, you get to realize that most of them had their first sexual encounter. You know, it doesn't have to be like actual sex, like penetration, but just the first sexual encounter with their house helps.
Yes.
You know, I don't know if it's the same story you've had, but for me, that's the story I've had quite a number of times. And they don't really know if, you know, they come to realize later that, oh, that's what was happening. I was assaulted while I was really young, you know? So you've had the same?
Yes, it actually happens more often, because when we ask boys about their experiences, most of them tell us, you know, people our age, they tell us, you know, my first time, it was with my house help. She just came on top of me and I couldn't refuse. You know, there's that whole notion around men not being able to say no to sex, which is a very harmful perception, because men can't say no too. Yeah, they can't say no. Yeah.
Raf, maybe if you can speak on just men, you know, allowing themselves to speak up. You know, because for girls, we do talk. I'll tell my friend, I will maybe talk to my mother, I'll maybe find someone I can speak to. But for guys, you really don't talk about it, especially when it's assault, because you wonder, okay, they're going to see me as less of a man, not just for the young ones, even, you know, for grown-up men, even with GBV, you know, when it happens to them, we rarely hear of these cases, but it's not that they don't happen. It's just that they are not recorded because they don't come up to speak about them. If you can just speak about that and maybe what can be done, you know, in general as a society, what can be done to enable men to be open to speak up?
Thank you. I usually try and tell men that you shouldn't think that you're alone, because I think even when you go to social media and all, you usually hear a lot of things that say, as a man, you're alone, no one cares about you, But I think it's important to realize that you're not alone. You have to, I really recommend that people find a band of brothers, even if it's just one guy. Find something you have in common. Let it be football, let it be cars, whatever. You have a group of guys who you can trust, who you can be open with. And just share it with them. Even if you don't want to share it with the police or whatever, share it with them at least. Share it with one person or the person you trust the most. If you don't really trust your friends that much, reach out to people like us. Like just go, even if it's anonymously, sending a message or whatever, just open up. Once you get it out of your chest, you'll find it easier to carry that burden with you. And the more people do this, the more we'll have the facts. As you said before, we were talking about 1 in every 5 girls. I don't think we have the accurate statistics for men. Because most men don't really talk about it. They don't report it. So I really advocate. It doesn't make you weak, because everyone in life, even let's say you have a business, it can fail, and your failure doesn't really define you. Exactly. You have to stand tall above whatever challenge you're going through. You have to just start with the mental. You have to really be mentally strong, because if you withhold it in you, you'll never move on from it. You'll keep it to yourself, and you'll be traumatized by the experience. And most of the times, the people who have this trauma, they've carried this trauma for a while, they usually end up being perpetrators sometimes, because they've not let go of the anger and the frustration that they have. So I really ask them, just speak to someone. If you are not comfortable going directly to the higher ups, the police or whatever, start with someone who just listen to you, and slowly by slowly you'll get the confidence to seek the justice you deserve.
Would you say this stems from how most of us were brought up? Because even when you're being brought up, if you have brothers at home, you know, you could cry, but if your brother cries, he's told, when you know, would you say it stems from there?
Yeah, I feel like patriarchy plays such an important role in shaping the views of men in our society, because it teaches them that, you know, men are not weak, men don't show their weaknesses, men should be this and that, and the next generation grows up knowing the same thing. And that's my foundation, as I said earlier, we work on you know, challenging these norms and trying to transform them into better sentences.
I want us to talk about victimization, because that's another thing.
Yes.
You know, victimization of the survivors, or if I don't know if the right one. Is it right to call them victims?
Yeah, we can call them survivors.
Okay, survivors sounds better. So victimization of the survivors.
Yes.
You know, even when you just go on social media, say there's a story written of a girl who was killed, you know, by the boyfriend, or who was killed at a B&B, which are stories we've been hearing, you know, the stories of femicide and whatnot. Even when you go through the comments, like sometimes it's very saddening, because you hear people saying, what did she do?
Yeah,
you know,
what was she doing there?
You know, that's what you get for just going for money. You know, you just look at these comments, and that's victimizing this person. You know, probably the person who's already dead from being assaulted, or if they manage to come out of it, just imagine them getting to see that they've been assaulted, they've been raped and whatnot. And then you go and you see, you know, you find out, okay, apparently it's my fault. Let's just talk about victimization. What does that do to the survivor?
So a better term would be victim blaming. So the whole aspect of victim blaming is shifting the narrative and centering the victim, the survivor, to the cause of the assault, when the actual and the real person who should be at the center is the perpetrator. And you just mentioned a femicide, and I would like to state the fact that femicide is an ongoing crisis in Kenya right now. And just this year, between January and March, there have been a total of 129 cases.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. And
just 4
in
months.
March, it was higher because it was 44. January was 43, and February 42. You know, which means that in a day, approximately more than one girl is murdered. You know, that's a whole crisis right there. And you'll still find people saying that, you know, what was she doing there, you know? But whatever the reason, like, you shouldn't kill someone, you know, simply because maybe they rejected you, or the plans changed midway, or even for money. Like, even if it's money, that's not based to now kill someone, you know. And that whole notion is very detrimental to the victims, because now it creates a space where they can't open up, you know, because you'll just be told it was your fault. And now once you start believing it's your fault, now you'll start looking at yourself differently, because you're wondering, you know, what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? When there's no reason that assaults to rape, you know?
Yeah.
It is entirely on the perpetrator.
Yeah.
It's not your
Nothing
skirt.
justifies.
Yeah, it's not your dress code.
Yeah.
It's not even the reason for money. There's no justification for rape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we have a really negative culture as Kenyans towards victim blaming, not even just around femicide. Let's say you've been mugged.
Yeah.
You've been asked, ulikuwa nje saa ngapi? What time were you walking
Yeah.
outside?
Couldn't you Nairobi?
Yeah.
Like, or your phone is snatched. Ulikuwa tumia simu kwa matatu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they blame the victim,
so much.
And this limits how it lets the perpetrators go free, because most people won't want to. Let's say you've been told, I've been assaulted. Ulikuwa nje saa ngapi? Ulikuwa umevaje? Like you won't seek justice because you'll start believing, oh, it was my fault.
Yeah.
Oh, it's because I was this. But in real sense, even babies are assaulted. And they're not dressing, I don't know how.
Yeah.
Or even
Muslims, yeah, when you're full on hijab,
yeah.
and there are so many Muslims who've been assaulted, so you can't really say it's the dress code.
Yeah, it's
really.
never about the dress
Yeah, it's
code.
never
It's
about
just
that.
about the person who has done that, the perpetrator. It's
Yeah.
never about anything else. I mean,
Yeah.
we can't justify it. And you know, within the same breath, the gender wars we see online, you know, when it comes to matters GBV, it seems like now it's a competition of, you think you're the only ones who are going through this.
Even
you know,
us.
like, what's happening and how do we try and change that?
On that part, I would say that most of the stories that I read online, when a woman comes out and says that, you know, I was assaulted, the men now jump in and say, even me, I was assaulted, you know, even me this, even me that. But I feel like men should come out, you know, without even the woman coming out. They should be open enough to speak of their assault stories so that they don't jump in whenever a woman tries to explain her experience. Yeah.
I usually encourage guys to come and join organizations like this even. Because let's say the topic we have most of the time is not all men are like that, not all men. So if you're not like that, come and join. Be part of the change. Instead of victim blaming and being there and defending men, we should come and be part of the change. Let's just accept that this thing is happening.
It is.
To both genders. It's not a race. Yeah, the numbers are there. It's not a matter of whose life is more difficult than the other. Like, let's just make the world a better place for all of us. Let's just join all these conversations. Let's be part of the change we want to see.
Yeah. So the foundation, where exactly are you based?
We're based here in Nairobi.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you work with anyone and everyone around Nairobi?
Yeah.
But you also travel outside Nairobi. So we usually have, even if you're going to the school visits and whatever, we usually try, especially the impoverished areas and the rural areas, they really have strong traditional beliefs. And for example, someone can be raped and they're told, you'll bring shame to the family, usiambie mtu. So they are hidden away. So we usually try at least every quarter, because we just try and go outside Nairobi and try and break these norms that people are believing, so that we can have a better world.
And even some of them are usually told, you know, now you have to marry your perpetrator.
Oh.
Yeah. There's
For
instances.
sure this is something that is happening?
Yes, it happens so much. You know, you report and maybe you're pregnant and you report to your parent, of course, and your parent tells you, you know, now you have to marry that person. We don't want to bring shame into our family.
Ooh.
Especially if there's a child involved.
Yeah,
you're
it
told
becomes
you have to marry.
heavier. Yeah.
You cannot bring shame to our family. So these traditional norms are really, especially in rural areas. In Nairobi, people are a bit woke, but in rural areas, they don't really have that access to the internet where they can learn most of these things. So they're really left
to education.
Yeah, even access to education. They're really left with the traditional beliefs they've grown up listening, like what they've believed growing up. So they're really, I don't know what word I can use to describe it. Like they really believe in these traditional practices.
The cultural norms are deeply ingrained into them. Like they wholeheartedly believe in that. And I wouldn't blame them. You grow up in a family and of course you follow what you're brought up in, you know. If your mother tells you something, you do believe her. And if your father tells you something, you do believe him, you know. So as you grow older, it becomes difficult to now shift your perception because it's what you've been knowing ever since you were born. You know, it's not easy to shift anyone's perception on anything, basically. Yeah.
Because that's how you're shaped.
Yeah, that's how you've grown up to
so
know. Yeah, it
can
becomes really difficult.
So we can easily say that, you know, cultural or societal norms are among the barriers that we get to face in this fight against GBV. Maybe what are some other barriers that we can speak about?
Patriarchy, the system, it really does fail the victims. And I would like to take it back to when growing up, basically, you know, as a girl growing up, you know, you are told, don't stay out late at night, you know, don't go by yourself. You know, if you're requesting an Uber, share the trip, you know, and you're told people will harm you. Yeah, you know, so that mentality grows up within you and you become extra cautious. And I feel like you can relate because, you know, being a girl and even a woman, it's especially difficult because now you have to really keep on second guessing and being extra careful of where you're at, who you're with. You have to always keep be aware of your surrounding. And even my mom, she always tells me that, you know, Sumaya, you know, you go, just make sure you check your surrounding, you know, you're alert. Yeah, and I feel like if the conversation shifted to also telling boys and men that, you know, don't hurt women, don't touch someone inappropriately.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember when we were having was it the femicide walk? Or, you know, there were T-shirts printed, you know, where it was written, protect your girls, and then the protect is like cancelled and stands to teach your boys. You know, so it's very important. Even as you were talking, we'll get on to speak about the barriers because I know you wanted to add on to that, but I just feel like, you know, we should make this holistic.
Yes.
So it's not just about telling your daughter, take care of yourself, you need to be careful. You know, no, not really. How about we just have the conversation with the boys and girls together and let them know this is right, this is wrong. You know, you don't just feel entitled to someone's body. Without their consent, you know. I think that would be really, really important to help with this fight against GBV and sexual assault. You were to add on to some of the barriers.
I wanted to add victim blaming is also a big barrier because people don't want to seek help because they think they're the problem.
So those are some of the main ones top of mind that you can just
think of.
Maybe what can be done in order for us to avert these numbers, because they're crazy. You know, in GBV and also on femicide, the numbers are just crazy. Like, you look at the numbers and you're just like, okay, we are doing badly, you know, when it comes to matters that. So probably just what can be done to avert this?
The first step, and I always like to say, is education, because once you're equipped with knowledge, you are able to recognize that, you know, this is wrong and this is right. And even though you do it or you don't do it, you're aware, and that's where now awareness comes in. So education is a very important tool. Like, make sure you educate yourself. Just know the basic stuff about sexual assault, and I feel like that will make such a very big difference.
Rafo?
I think, just to add on to that, I think education is really important because, as we were talking about before, if you can't name it, you don't really know it's a challenge. So once you are educated, and it doesn't have to be the school education, even if it's just outside with societies. We actually wanted to start clubs in schools where we go and just have a safe space where you can discuss these matters. So it's just these clubs and societies, when you're doing it in your extracurricular activities, just having these conversations and educating yourself towards these matters, it will really be the biggest change you can see.
I want us to speak legal now in a way. Just how easy or difficult is it to report some of these cases? And once you, because you've dealt with some of these cases, and once you get to report, how, you know, just how does the progression happen? Do we get to see the perpetrators being, you know, brought to book and all that? First of all, begin by how easy or hard is it to just report some of these cases?
Reporting is entirely on the victim, but if the victim accepts to report and goes to the police station, you know, it's very difficult most of the time for even most of the police to actually believe you, because you know there's the textbook definition of what some of these assault cases are. Let's say, for example, something like rape. People believe that, you know, you have to scream, and sometimes, you know, if it happens in, let's say, a dark alley, because that's most of the notion surrounding it, your clothes are muddy and all that. And now when you go to the police, maybe just for example, if you're dressed nicely and you just go and say, you know, I'm just from being assaulted, they'd look at you and think, hey, you don't look like you've been assaulted. You know, because there's what society believes and there's what happens to the victim. Yeah. And if society believes that, you know, in order for someone to report a rape, you have to be shocked, you have to be crying, that whole notion is actually very wrong, because fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it shuts down. Yeah, and I feel like even in the police sector, they really need to be educated on matters of handling victims. And these days, there's usually agenda based violence office, where you just go directly. And I feel like that's really helped with the victims, because you don't really have to go to the counter directly. You can just go to the office and report. Once you report, it does take quite a bit of time for from the moment you report up until the victim is arrested. I mean, sorry, the perpetrator is arrested. So it's a long process. Yeah, it's a long process and it does take time. So, yeah.
And another issue is the numbers say the people who assault you the most are not strangers, they're people you know. So the biggest challenge is also reporting your uncle. Like you'll find the victim is, that's my dad, so they don't have that space haven, that place where they can seek justice, because you are seeking justice and then coming back home in the evening. So the case will, you find that the victim will drop the case. So they're usually, it's also something in our goals in the future to just build a safe haven where the victims can come and have a temporary stay as they're seeking their justice. Yeah. So that process where they don't have a safe place to stay, because let's say it's your uncle, you can't go report him and then come back in the evening. You'll be beaten. So most of the time people are just quiet about it. So you really, there's one we visited and it's not really publicized, these places. So we have to have more of these areas.
Safe spaces?
They're not, you won't find that a billboard there saying, so this is where these people are. So they're just taken in until your court case is over. So you're just provided shelter, food, and vocational training during this entire process.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And, you know, you've mentioned something that was also among the things I wanted us to talk about when we talk about sexual assault awareness. The fact that it happens and that family is set up, you know, and it does happen. It's not like it's something that is far-fetched. It does happen. So now, what to do, you know, when it's in your home, it's your dad, you know, it could be your mom who's doing that. Just what to do, you know?
So I would like to say the fact that it does happen quite a lot. Actually, most of the times the victims know of their perpetrators because it's people close to them. And when it does happen, I feel like the best thing is definitely to report. Even though it's going to be hard and not easy and it's gonna take a toll on the entire family, it's essential to report.
Yeah.
And I think we have to have these conversations more often so that we can build such safe spaces so that even people can know about them. Because let's say you've been assaulted by a relative, you feel like there's nowhere you can go. If you tell your mom, let's say you've told your mom that your dad did this to you, your mom, because of the traditional cultural beliefs that we have, utaambiwa, you'll bring shame, nyamaza, usiambie mtu. So you'll live in that space where I can't tell anyone about this because, hey, how will it look on my family?
And these are cases that we actually witness firsthand, because apart from educating the high school students. We also have programs where we go into communities and gather girls around from that area and educate them on sexual assault. And when they get to open us and tell us about their stories, most of them say that it's my dad who did this to me, and my mom told me not to speak about it anymore or not to tell anyone. And it's actually very painful and sad when that happens, because your parent, this is your guardian, this is someone who's supposed to protect you. And instead of that, it's the same person who harms you. Yeah, so it's very difficult for the victim, and it's a very long process before the victim gets help, because he or she first of all has to acknowledge that it's someone who's close to him or her. Yeah, then also choose to report, you know, and some of them feel guilty, but we tell them, no, they hurt you. They weren't feeling guilty when they did that act. So you shouldn't even feel guilty when you now choose yourself and decide to report and seek justice for yourself.
Okay. All right. On that note, we take a break, and then when we come back, we will allow you to send in your messages and to also call in live if you have any question on the matter that we are talking about, that is sexual assault awareness.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with your music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam aliongeza kuwa nyumba ya Muislamu inapaswa kuwa tofauti kwa kupambwa na mambo tofauti.
Unakuta nyumba yetu tumeweka vitu ambazo ni za hatari, na tunawaruhusu watoto wetu pia wanatizama vitu kama zile, tunafanya wanamsahau Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
It's mad, straight mad. Mama went a long way, never came back. Stuck up in a hallway, I never made that. Till I find a lost way, I never straight back. Sit and meditate that.
Elimu ni taa, gizani uzaga.
Elimu ni bahari isiyokauka zinge.
Karibu katika sanaa ya Kiswahili, bahari yenye kina kirefu.
Sote tumeandika, hii kweli ni balaa.
Bila shaka tunazama na tukiibuka vipaji talanta mbalimbali ndani ya sanaa ya Kiswahili.
Nina neno kwa vijana, mihadarati na pombe, bila madhara mabaya.
Kuna bunge la mwanafunzi, uchambuzi wa vitabu na kulizamia swala zima la fasihi.
Mchimba shimo huingia mwenyewe.
Kwa hivyo unasoma dondoo, alafu unabaini ni fani gani ambayo tunajitokeza.
Ipate chemsha bongo bila tafadhali wala kibali.
Na si hayo tu mtazamaji.
Kumbuka, ni sanaa ya kipekee. Tuchangamkie Kiswahili,
tufurahie sanaa.
Thank you for staying with us. Remember, you can now get to talk to us. Our number is 0716-103-301. 0716-103-301. You can call in live if you have a question, if you have a comment you want to make on this matter that we're talking about today, that is sexual assault awareness. You are free to do that, or you can also send a WhatsApp message on the same. I can only imagine, you know, you get to deal with these cases, right? So I can only imagine the mental derailment that happens. Because we are talking about it already, I'm feeling sad.
Yeah.
So I can imagine now you getting to deal with these cases, you know, as often as you do. Do you also get to take time for just yourselves to, you know, for yourselves to maybe just release? Because I can imagine you being given these stories when you go to school. Some of them are really graphic and whatever. So just how do you take time for yourselves as well to just get to Usa?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we also have therapists who also, apart from the victims, we also have group therapy sessions where we also talk, and, you know, at least we share the load with each other. We are able to communicate, and we understand that the work we do is more important. So we also try to center the survivors instead of ourselves most of the time. Yeah.
Okay, yes,
And
there's
also
the survivors, but now you...
Yeah. Just reminding yourself that, you know, you're doing the best you can, first of all. It's not that we are not doing anything. It would be bad to hear and not do anything, but at least we are making progressive steps towards their healing. So that makes the load a bit lighter.
And we also undergo, she was saying, the group therapy. As the Fortuna Foundation team, we just have a therapist and we just share these things. Maybe you've heard a story and it's affected you, so we just tell them, and they're there to also help us. So it's not, the therapy is not just for the victims, and the survivors is also for us. So we have these sessions where, so that these issues, you don't internalize them, they affect you negatively. You can't go and help another person. You have to, we usually have this group therapy sessions really help us. Even after events, let's say we just have a debrief after an event. We say, okay, so this happened, this boy came and told me this, and so even when me, I'm talking to Sumaya, she'll help me to process whatever I've heard.
It's always good talking it out. And even as you're saying, you don't really need to speak to a therapist. We advocate for therapy 100%, but I'm just saying, if you can't get to that level where you can access a therapist, just find someone you can speak
talk to.
Or you can even journal. You can even journal by yourself and just let go of those emotions. Just write it down or record your voice note on your WhatsApp or whatever. Just speaking it out through your journaling, or you'll just feel much relieved afterwards.
The point is not to carry that weight alone. If something is weighing you down, you need to offload it.
Probably just to get to understand how you work with the survivors, like say from the time someone comes, tells you this happened to me. Okay, I think you had mentioned it, but anyway, like how exactly do you like move from now this point where, or someone just sent you a message, if you have a number that people can talk to you on, someone just sent you a message saying this happened to me yesterday, where do you begin from there?
So usually, as she was saying before, we've partnered with Nahia and the team has called House Call Medics. So once we've received this notification, we let them know. So they can come to you. They help that first aid really. So they collect either the evidence or you're told not to shower after you've been assaulted. So once you've told us, we connect you to Nahia. Nahia comes with her team. They check everything is okay. They collect the samples they need to do, and they now also link you up with Yashim and the legal team now, so they can also take that up if you want to seek that legal aid at that time. If not, Nahia and a mental health group can come to you also. Once they've collected the samples, they vote. So that process where you have been helped to process the traumatic experience with the mental health therapist there to help you understand, just process everything. Once you're ready, the Yashim and their legal team can come in and help you to report the case.
Yeah, and an important part I feel like is missed is, first of all, when we talk to the victim, we tell them of the help that's available, and we ask them which one of the help that's available, are they more comfortable in pursuing? Because they also have to be willing to take on that journey, because it is a journey. So we let them know, and we ask them, where would you like to begin, you know? Because some of them don't feel like reporting, some of them choose not to report. And we do respect that. We don't encourage it, but we respect it.
Yeah. Okay, you have a Gali camp coming up. We'll get to talk about that, but before we talk about that, there are some messages that have come in. Someone is asking, how do I avoid sexual assault? How would you answer such?
You know,
it's
to avoid it. There's no way you can avoid, because it can happen anywhere at any time by whomever. So there's no way you can avoid, but you can teach people not to.
I'll cut you short, sorry about that. We have a caller. We have John from Migori. John, good morning. Good morning, John. If you can hear me, John, good morning. Okay. We seem to have lost him. So we were just talking about how...
And this whole notion stems from the victim blaming aspect, because now you feel like, as the victim or the survivor, you know, what can I do to protect myself? But that whole narrative should shift and focus on the perpetrators, where we now tell them, do not do this, do not do that. Don't harm women, don't harm men. Let people consent freely. Don't cause someone to consent to your sexual advances. You know,
Just to add on to that.
I believe John is back on the line. John, good morning. John, kindly mute your television so that we can be able to hear you. Good morning. Talk to us.
Good morning, madam.
How are you? Kindly talk to us.
So the issue comes. Yeah, I'm talking to you. So the issue is, the issue comes in a situation where we see survival sex for business.
Sorry? John? Okay, we've lost him, unfortunately. So, you know, there's another message here, and this one is almost the same. He's saying, my name is Catherine from Vihiga. How can I protect myself from unwanted, it's a bit different, unwanted sexual attention? Some of this, I know it's very difficult.
No, it's not difficult. It's similar to the first one. Yeah, because you cannot control the attention you have once you step out of the house. Really, you cannot control that.
I think the best way we can answer that is encourage people to be proactive in these conversations. So that, let's say, for example, you have someone from Vihiga and they've listened to this. She goes and tells her friends. These conversations, once we're having them more and more often, people are more aware of the subject, and they're more aware of, like, catcalling is wrong. Spanking someone and groping someone without their consent is wrong. So it's just being proactive and educating as many people as we can in this matter.
Let's talk about the camp that is coming up. What is it all about?
So as I mentioned earlier, apart from the outreach programs we have in school, we also now go to communities, and we go to a specific area, and we're able to gather girls within that area and educate them on not only sexual assault, but also on mental health, legal guidelines for sexual assault survivors. And also we also invite vocational trainers who are able to at least teach them one or two things that they can benefit from financially. So the first one, we had it at Jericho, where we were able to gather around 50 girls. And the second one, we had it in Karioko, Ziwani, where we were able to gather 70 girls, and we also had guests, so the crowd was around 100 people. And this time we are going to Mathare, the third edition of Gali Camp, where we hope to gather 100+ girls from that area and educate them. So within that educational camp, we also offer them lunch, and we give them sanitary towels and also the education. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's happening on Saturday in
Yes.
Mathare. Where exactly in Mathare?
There's a hall called Pekui in Mathare. That's where it's going to take place.
Mlango Kubwa.
Yes.
Mlango Kubwa. How do you get to pick where exactly to go? Because you mentioned you were in Jericho, you know, and now you're going to Mathare. How do you get to pick where to go?
We do our statistics and we research on the areas that are highly affected by sexual assault, and then we're able to go there.
Okay, we have a caller from Kisumu. John, morning. Good morning, John. Okay, I don't know what's happening with our calls today. All right, so...
yes, good morning.
Hi, John. Kindly talk to us.
Yes, I would want to...
Go ahead. John, can you hear me? We seem to be having issues with the call-ins. I'm so sorry about that. You were mentioning just how you get to decide.
I do research. You
do your research,
Yeah.
And what exactly are you looking at? Areas where probably there could be a probability of such happening, or
there's where there's a heightened risk.
Heightened risk.
Yeah, of sexual assault. Yeah.
And also try and look for areas that are with high poverty rates. Because we had a case before where one of the girls who came said they can't afford sanitary towels.
Yeah.
And they are forced to have sexual relations with men who are older to get money to get sanitary towels so that she can go to school.
Yeah.
So we try and have this. Even when we're doing the girly camp, we are encouraging the vocational trainers to come and just teach them and just speak to them, even entrepreneurs, to try and change that norm where they just think that like the only way out is through sex with someone older. Like just try and encourage them to like start businesses, to try something different, to be economically empowered so that they're not forced towards going towards that route just to get sanitary towels and just to get the basic needs that they deserve. So yeah.
Yeah. From the ones that, this is the third edition,
Yeah.
right? So you've done the first and the second edition.
Yeah.
What can you say has significantly stood out for you, you know, from these camps, and what more do you expect from, you know, the third one now?
I think that's really stood out for me, especially in the first one, was the fact that after the session, there's one girl who came to me. She was around 16 years old, and when she came to me, she had tears in her eyes, and she told me that, Sumaya, I've never known that this is assault. Yeah, so she had been assaulted by the dad now at home, and the mom kept on telling her that, you know what, just don't say, it's okay. So she had grown up knowing, or she is actually, because she's still young, so she knows that, you know, sometimes things like those happen in families. And the mom told her, you can't speak on it to anyone. So when she heard that these things are actually assault, and, you know, I have been invalidated, you know, so that's what really hurt her the most. And now she told us that, you know, she's not yet ready to speak on it. And, you know, at that time, you really can't force someone to seek help if they don't want the help. So she had to go back home. And I feel like for me, that was the saddest part of it all. And I remember that night, I couldn't even sleep well because I just kept on thinking about her. Yeah, because she had to now not speak about it again and go back to the same environment that hurt her. Yeah.
All right, we have John again from Kisumu. John, good morning.
Hello.
Hi, talk to us, John. We can hear you, John.
Yes, good morning, Madam Presenter.
Yeah, good morning. Talk
I
to
want
us.
to say that the ongoing program is a very important one. It is quite insightful and very eye-opening. I would want to thank Madam Sumaya and the other gentleman whose name I've not gotten right. Issues of sexual harassment are issues that are at the heart of every society. And Madam Sumaya is indeed undertaking a very important duty in creating awareness at her level. The government should actually come out more actively. And the media, particularly KBC, the national broadcaster, should actually be able to be at the very forefront in highlighting such very issues. The greatest of challenges is that some of these could be happening at family levels. And when they happen at family levels, they become incest. And incest brings a lot of shame to the entire family genealogy. And so not much could be exposed. The family genealogy, the entire clan could be trying to hide so that they could protect their faces. Yet these assaults continue to take place daily. I'm sure even as this program is ongoing, could be there is a child being assaulted somewhere, a lady being assaulted somewhere. The government needs to step up the effort, and KBC as a national broadcaster really needs to come out, and Madam Sumaya actually needs to be supported a great deal by the donors and by the government actors, so that we could have networks of exposing these illegalities in whichever corner they take place and addressing them head on with legal authorities. Thank you and be blessed. KBC continue doing a very good work. Madam Sumaya, may Allah bless you to continue creating this great awareness. Thank you. I'm John Odundo from Kisumu.
Thank you so very much, John. You made Sumaya also cry. Thank you so very much for your sentiments, which were actually exactly what we're talking about, you know? Like, everyone needs to join in on this conversation. It can't be a one person's responsibility of this particular organization or this particular institution or this particular person or, you know, just the leaders or whoever. It's supposed to be a fight where all of us join in. Because, I mean, it's our society, we're living in it. So when such things happen, it affects us in one way or another. It may not be direct to you, but in some way, it will definitely come to you. It will affect you in one way or the other. There's a message here that has also come in. Someone is asking where they can find you as the foundation. Probably if they want to find you, probably social media. Where exactly can they find you on social media?
So on our social media platform, we have the same name, which is Sumaya Foundation. On LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, just Sumaya Foundation. And you can also email us at sumayafoundation@gmail.com. Or you can also call us at 0716 630 141.
All right, that's how you can get to find Sumaya Foundation. There's another one here, and this one is of a lady who's talking about an assault that almost happened. So she says that I boarded a motorbike a few days ago. The guy took me to a bushy area. He almost raped me, but God sent 2 angels whom they came and stopped him. I didn't report him yet. What can I do about it? And she continues to say that it's a rider that she knows because the guy called him the following day to ask for forgiveness. So she's asking, how exactly can she, you know, get to report such a case? Where does she start? Is it even a case?
Yes, it is. Because, you know, sexual assault is not only the act, but the attempt. Yeah, so the attempt to obtain that act. Yeah. So I would advise her to reach out to us, and we can be able to help her accordingly. And we can now help her report, and she can seek the services that she requires. Yeah.
All right. As we almost come to a conclusion of this conversation, probably the Madare camp that is happening, is it open to everyone? Or, you know, are you working with a certain number so you can't work with everyone? Just tell me about that.
No, yeah. We've selected few girls from that area, but it's also open to everyone. Everyone can come in, and if you're unable to, you can also support us. Yeah, we also have a till number where you can be able to send in any contribution, or you can send us an in-kind contribution, such as sanitary towels or soaps, or, you know, those things that girls may need. Or you can also volunteer. You know, we are looking for also vocational trainers, mental health experts, legal experts, so that we can come in and have this conversation with all the girls. And Rafael, remember the till?
Okay, you can share the till, but at least you've shared where they can find you.
Yes.
You can share with them, you know, probably when they reach out. So it's open to
everyone.
Everyone is open. Especially
every person to come join you in Madare. The young girls who may be watching here and they live in Madare.
Yes, they can come as well. That day.
Do we have a boy camp? Let me speak to child.
I actually not wanted to say after this. So we usually try and hold these events whenever the kids are on holiday. So April and August and December. So in August we have a boys event. It will be a soccer event.
Yeah, we are planning to host a tournament, because, you know, we are trying to think of a way where we can bring boys together. And I feel like football is such an essential element. So if we host a football camp, we bring boys together, they play football, and we also educate them, and we give them prizes. That's what we are working on next.
So that's in August.
So it's coming.
Yeah, it's
coming. Anyway, that's really nice. You guys are doing an amazing job, and I love the fact that you're incorporating both boys and girls, because most times we tend to just cater for the girl, and it's maybe understandable because of the numbers, but yes, it's good to also get the boys involved in this conversation, get the men involved in this conversation, so that we just have, as I've said, we allow it to be holistic, you know, and it's very important for us to keep having such conversations, you know, it's really important for us to keep speaking about this and spreading awareness on it, because as you had said earlier, you know, when maybe a case of assault has happened and it's rape, you're not supposed to shower. You know, this is something that maybe some people don't know, and that's how some perpetrators go free, because there's no evidence against them. So we need to really have more of these conversations over and over again. And even as we wind up, I'm being told there's one last caller. Wairimo, good morning. Wairimo, if you can hear me, good morning. And what's your comment or question on this conversation? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Sumaya. Thank you so much, Rafo. Nimestick na jina Rafo. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. You're doing a good job. You know, may you continue doing it. And also thank you for gracing our studios today to talk about this conversation that I said earlier. We need to keep having it over and over and over again, right?
And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Such an honor to be here. We are really grateful. Thank you so much.
What may be your last remarks or your parting shots?
My parting shot would be to end victim blaming, because it's such a huge part. So don't protect your daughters, educate your sons.
Okay.
Mine is just to invite all of you on Saturday. I hope we'll be in Madare. Come and support us, help us take this challenge on, one step at a time.
All right. Thank you so very much. This is where we come to an end of this conversation. Many thanks to each and every one of you who has been tuned in from the beginning when we started the show at 6:30 a.m. until this point where we are winding. My name is Vivian Dagwa. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing, same time and place. Goodbye.